From sinister practices comprised of bets against fate itself that reward players with unfathomably good luck if they survive the night,
to rituals involving mirrors and dark rooms, where the answers to any question in the universe can be found, at a considerable risk to one's very being.
Are you prepared to explore our second list of 5 scary games you probably shouldn't play? Number 5. The Gambler. The Gambler is an infamous ritual-style card game purportedly played against a demon, or by some accounts, against the devil himself, wherein the wager at stake is the participant's own life and soul. The Gambler first appeared on Creepypasta Wikia around 2010, and all that's required to perform this diabolical practice is a table and 2 chairs placed within a quiet dark room and a pack of standard playing cards. It's said players should begin when they feel in their heart that the time is right, and that they should do so by taking their pack of playing cards to their table and sitting in one of the chairs before shuffling thoroughly, making sure not to stack or mark their cards in any way, as it's told cheaters will be subject to dire consequences. The player must then choose their favorite card game, one of the most commonly selected of which is blackjack, and should deal only themselves a hand. They should then, while facing the opposing chair, utter the words, "Let's play," and should proceed to wait. It's said that if no change or alteration in the atmosphere is perceived, that the player should close out the ritual and attempt it again on a different night. However, if the participant should happen to feel a cold chill, commonly known to brush the left arm, it's told they are now in the presence of the Gambler, and that the ritual is set to proceed. When the player feels the Gambler's presence, they should then deal him his hand, and should begin playing whatever game they dealt as they would normally do so, making the Gambler's move for him, but only within his best interests, holding if his showing card is over 7 or hitting if it's under, and never peeking at his unrevealed cards until the hand is over. For poker, players might favor Texas Hold'em, which relies only on the dealer laying down more cards, or if utilizing 5 or 7 card draw, should select cards to replace at random, again without peeking. Whatever game is selected should be played out to its conclusion, and chillingly, it's said the results will determine the participant's fate. If the player wins, it's told they should draw the top card from their deck and slide its edge quickly across the print of their right pointer finger. If the card draws blood, it's claimed this hand will have the power to win any gamble moving forward in life, an ability some advise that should be used wisely. If the Gambler wins, however, it's told he will collect his prize, being the player's life in very essence, and that the process will not be quick, clean, or painless. On some closing notes, variations of this legend advise players to use a new deck of cards for the ritual, as the Gambler can be quite untrustworthy and may not show for a beat-up or worn-out deck, and also that potential victims players consider before throwing their cards in why there might be so few truly lucky hands in our world.
Number 4. The Dark Reflection. The Dark Reflection is a ritual-style game where participants welcome a night of terrifyingly bad luck upon themselves, in a sort of bargain with fate, that, should they survive this trial, that they might be blessed with good fortune, health, and wealth to a degree their feet never touch the ground. Chillingly, once the Dark Reflection ritual is started, there's actually no way to close or halt it, so play this one at your own risk, and don't even consider starting if you're not absolutely certain about attempting to finish. While this game is playable by a singular individual, some highly recommend only playing in a group, as following the ritual, collected negative energy has a habit of dispersing between those present, and the more players, the thinner the dispersion should be. All that's required to play the Dark Reflection is a mirror, a candle, and matches or a lighter, and the procedure is broken up into separate acts that must be seen through in order. For Act 1, the player or players should prepare their desired ritual site and be ready to begin no later than 6 hours before dawn. And while the site itself shouldn't make a difference, many advise Dark Reflection shouldn't be played within anyone's own residence, as energies could linger. Once the site is prepared, the player or players should take the mirror in front of them, look their own reflection in the eyes, making sure to focus their attention on the negative forces held within, and should then breathe onto the surface of the mirror until it fogs. This step should be repeated separate times for all players present, after which the candle should be ignited and held to the mirror's surface. Once the candle has blackened a small portion of the glass, it should be removed and extinguished, following which the mirror should be broken to release its negative energy, the pieces left where they lay, and the area evacuated. This is when Act 2 begins. At this point, it's told extreme bad luck will stalk all who were present through the following act, and while unlucky incidents may start off as seemingly insignificant, it's warned that small slip-ups can turn fatal quickly, and that players' survival is dependent on their alertness and ability to avoid perils. It's important all involved stay vigilant, and recommended that any who feel threatened immediately hold their breath, as it's said doing so may buy a few moments of protection. For those who survive the night unscathed, this is when Act 3 begins, during which time it's told players' luck will change as the dawn breaks, into a streak of infallible good fortune that may include popularity, success, winning streaks, promotions, and more. On some side notes, the mirror used in the dark reflection ritual is important to the formula. It's said a mirror with a personal connection to the player will afford a much more tailored lucky experience, more accurately matching their likes and desires, while the age of the mirror is rumored to affect the direct power of the charm, and incidentally, the curse. This means that while it may be tempting to use an aged reflector for extra payoff in Act 3, during Act 2, dangers will also be much more deadly.
Number 3, Doors to the Mind. Doors to the Mind is a game purported to allow players to explore the innermost reaches of their own consciousness by way of a sort of guided meditation. However, it's told this journey, while rewarding, is also perilous, and that negative results can even be fatal. Doors to the Mind first appeared in 2012 on Reddit under a slew of different monikers, including Red Door, Yellow Door, the game of 7 doors, and Black Door, White Door, which was actually played earlier through the 1990s. To participate in this perplexing practice, 2 persons are needed, a principal and a partner. All that's required is a quiet room, some candles, matches or a lighter, an alarm clock, and, optionally, a pillow and recording device. The participating duo should begin when the principal is feeling most relaxed, during which time they should enter their quiet room, dim all lights, ignite candles, and start recording if desired. Players should set their alarm clock for exactly 1 hour from their start time, after which the selected partner should sit on the floor, while the principal should lay their head in the partner's lap, facing up and with their eyes closed, utilizing the pillow for comfort if desired. Once in position, the partner should begin rubbing the principal's temples in slow, steady circular motions, while the principal should keep their eyes closed. The partner, acting as a sort of guide, should then speak the following words. You are at one end of a very long corridor. There are numerous doors to both sides of this corridor, spanning the entire length. I want you to explore these doors and the rooms behind them. Describe to me what you see, hear, touch, and feel with great detail. At this point, the principal should find their mind's eye in said corridor, and should be able to explore about, opening doors, discovering items, and more. There are no rules as to how a principal should traverse their mind's expanse, but several important tips persist. Those traveling should always pay close attention to their surroundings, to what they're wearing, to what's in their pockets, and to anything that could mean something to their physical person. They should also be sure to closely examine each door before opening them. Their color, handle, appearance, and even temperature, as such traits could provide hints as to what lies beyond. Finally, travelers should always trust their gut instincts, and should not open any doors that give bad feelings, or that just don't set right. When the alarm goes off, the partner should guide the principal back to the real world with their own words, during which time the corridor should recede, and the doors that have been opened should close. Once the principal is back in our realm, they should quickly extinguish all candles and turn off the recording device, which they're welcome to listen to later at their own risk. On some side notes, this game can be played as many times as desired, and some claim with experience the alarm clock may not even be necessary after a point, as the calloused partner should be able to tell when their principal is ready to awaken. If the principal finds themselves in a room with clocks, they should not touch anything and should leave immediately. If principals encounter an old woman, it's pertinent that they not speak to her and promptly leave whatever room she's inhabiting. If principals encounter a man in a suit that brings with him a sense of dread, they should let their partner know, who should end the session promptly, regardless of when the alarm is set to go off. If, at any point, the partner is unable to recover their principal, it's important the principal not speak to the suited man or any other entities present. Some doors may be locked, blocked, barricaded, or barred. Principals should check their person and surroundings for a key or means to open said blockages, but if none are available, they should simply move on, as it likely means they're not ready for what's on the other side. Lastly, several have told of encounters in which principals have become trapped within rooms. In one instance, a participant was unable to awaken and required being violently shaken by his sister in order to reclaim reality. As a closing bit of advice, this legend warns potential principals should tread lightly, as one's mind isn't always their friend.
Number 2, Three Kings. Three Kings is a ritual-style game purportedly capable of summoning spirits, unknown entities, or even demons that allow the player to ask and receive accurate answers to any question they desire. The earliest mention of this practice stems from documentation on various creepypasta forums and Reddit, and all that's required to play is a principal, a partner, a darkened and quiet room with a latching door, a candle, a lighter, a small bucket of water, a clean mug or cup, an electric fan, 2 large mirrors, an alarm clock, 3 chairs, a fully charged cell phone, and a small object that holds sentimental value. On a side note, it's important both the principal and partner are healthy emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, and that there are no mind-altering substances consumed prior to the ritual. Three Kings should be started at 11 p.m. sharp, at which time the player should move to their chosen quiet, darkened room, and should place one of their chairs facing to the north to represent their throne, and the other 2 about an arm's length from either side, facing towards this middle throne, as seats for the queen and fool. The player should then secure 1 mirror to each of these side chairs, so that when they're sitting on the throne, they should be able to see their own reflection in the periphery to each side, without having to turn or look astray. Players should place their bucket and chosen mug in front of the throne, just barely out of reach, and should place a fan behind the throne, turned on either low or medium, as to not detract from the ritual. Once the darkened, quiet room is prepared in this manner, the player should leave, being careful not to shut the door to their throne room en route. They must then place their cell phone, sentimental item, candle, and lighter close to their bed, and should set their alarm for 3:30 in the morning before going to sleep. When the player is awakened by their alarm at 3:30 without turning on any lights, they should get out of bed, light their candle, grab their phone, and keep their sentimental item close at hand before seating themselves in their throne by no later than 3:30 a.m. At this point, if any of the following has transpired, if the player's phone didn't charge, if their alarm didn't go off in time, if the throne room door is found closed, if the fan is found shut down, or if they're not able to make their throne by exactly 3:33 a.m., it's important that the ritual be aborted immediately, and that the principal and partner leave the property until 6 a.m. If none of these red flags are present, however, it's considered safe to proceed. Upon entering the room, the player should close the door behind them, and the partner should remain just outside the door, staying as quiet as possible. Taking care to protect the candle from the fan's breeze, the player should then make their way to the throne and get seated, using their body to block their candle from the wind behind. Incidentally, it's told this is a fail-safe, and that should something go wrong and should the person's body either slump or move, the candle should be extinguished by the fan, ending the ritual. At this point, the player should keep their eyes focused at the darkness in front of them, and should, under no circumstances, turn their head or look directly in the mirrors at either side. They can then ask questions, to which, disturbingly, they should receive answers. However, it is noted that there is no way of telling if it's the fool or the queen answering, and that every answer should be taken with a grain of salt. It's also advised players take questions seriously and that they prepare themselves to be asked questions in return. At 4:34 a.m., the partner on the outside of the door should call out to the principal and let them know that the game has ended. If the principal doesn't respond, the partner should attempt to call the phone left within. If this also fails, and only if all other options are exhausted, the partner should enter the room and attempt to snap the principal out of the ritual by calling their name, making sure never to touch them. If the principal remains locked in trance, as a last resort, the partner should douse them in water from the bucket using the mug and should make sure the candle is extinguished. These are, of course, worst-case scenarios, and should everything go according to practice, the principal should usually be fully capable of closing the ritual out on their own, by way of standing up, blowing out their candle, and leaving the room to signify closure. On a side note, if at any point the principal feels threatened, it's advised they focus on their sentimental item as a grounding point of peace.
Number 1. The Shoebox Telephone. The Shoebox Telephone is a ritual game purported to allow players communication with deceased loved ones, so that final questions might be answered and unfinished business put to rest. That's become especially popular in both military and prison circles, where the deaths of loved ones are often experienced from afar. This custom should be performed with one player, and what's required is a metaphorical phone booth, for which a closet or any other small dark space will function fine, a paper cup, a shoebox, a piece of thread or twine at around 2 to 4 feet in length, a needle, a pair of scissors, one power object bearing a connection to the deceased, a sheet of paper, an ink pen, and a surface to write upon. This ritual should be started right before bed, during which time the player can keep lights on, but should turn off all other electronics, including phones, TVs, computers, and the like. They should wait until they feel the time is right to begin with good intentions, and should take up their paper and pen and write a letter addressed to their dearly departed with which they wish to communicate. In said letter, the player should explain why the departed should call them, and should avoid crossing anything out or fixing mistakes, as genuine material is claimed to yield better results. When the player is done with their letter, they should take up their length of thread and tie one end to the power object. Then, using the needle, should thread the other end through the bottom of their paper cup before removing the needle and tying the thread off. This device will act as a sort of supernatural handset. The player should then lift the paper cup to an appropriate range and read their letter into it as if relaying their words into a microphone as sincerely as possible. They should then place their letter and power object into the shoebox, with the telephone wire thread left leading out, and should close the lid of the box without sealing it completely, before resting it on the floor of their selected phone booth, with their cup placed atop the shoebox, and their scissors set down next to it. At this point, it's up to the player to wait for their telephone to ring. It's told this ring will likely come in the form of a dream that could occur night of or up to 4 nights later, wherein the player will receive a call from the person they're trying to contact that results in them waking in the middle of the night with the inherent knowledge that their shoebox phone is ringing. The player should then get up out of bed and enter their phone booth, making sure not to turn on any lights or utter any noises. At this point, it's advised that if the shoebox is open, or if the cup is knocked over, that the ritual be aborted, and that the player should, without touching any other piece of the device, snap the string with their bare hands, or cut it with the scissors, and if desired, should retry on a different night. If the shoebox and cup are undisturbed, however, the player may proceed by entering the phone booth and closing the door. The player should then sit on the floor, press the paper cup to their ear, cover their other ear with their hand, and listen closely, while taking care to keep all audible noise to a minimum. The participant should, under no circumstances, speak any words, even if asked questions from the other end, as it's told they had their turn to say what they had to through the safety of their letter and cup, and reacting so openly to such forces could result in someone or something crossing over. When the call concludes, or if the player simply wishes to end this ritual at any point, they should hold the shoebox lid firmly closed with one hand, while pulling the thread with their other until it snaps. Again, if the player is unable to snap the line, they should use their scissors. The shoebox closed firmly through the entirety of this severing. After the line is cut, the player should move the shoebox to a safe location for several months, and should ensure it stay closed. The paper cup should never again be used, and should be burned immediately following. On some closing notes, if the player proceeds with this ritual without feeling in their hearts that it's the correct and respectful time, or if they write their letters in doubt, they could get what many refer to as a wrong number, which could be nothing at all, or this misdial could result in a malevolent entity that either impersonates the person they love or attaches itself to the player, tormenting them for the remainder of their lives. At the time of placing their call, players must not create the handset in advance, and must write their letters before its creation. Oh, and if the dream symbolizing the phone ringing doesn't come after 4 nights, it's recommended the ritual be closed out and attempted on another occasion far into the future. Thanks for joining us for our second list of 5 scary games you probably, or definitely shouldn't play.
If you enjoyed hearing our histories and scary stories, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn notifications on. Throw us a like and share us with anyone you feel deserves a good scare.
Pleasant dreams.